Gonna get me a shotgun and kill all the whiteys I see.
It's SNL, a look back at Saturday Night Live with your hosts, Matt, Dee, and Keith. Brought to you by Lion's Den Audio Theater. Like and subscribe to Lion's Den Audio Theater for more Lion's Den goodness. And here are your hosts, Keith, Dee, and Matt.
Saturday Night Live, Episode 11, with hosts Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, originally aired on January 24th, 1976. And again, it's Keith and Matt and Dee. Hello, Dee and Matt.
Hey.
I'm live on the air.
Tonight, we get our first UK hosts, and our first team host is Peter Cook and Dudley Moore. Familiar with these two gentlemen?
Only Dudley Moore through VHS comedy shit through my childhood, like Arthur and whatever the hell other VHS comedy he was in. That's how I know Dudley Moore.
They gained a lot of prominence working as part of the four-person comedy team Beyond the Fringe. Cook is seen as the father of modern British satire. He was not just the forefront of it, he was it for a while. He was very active in opening opportunities for comedic voices on the fringe, and is pretty much universally adored and the object of jealousy from comedians of his and later generations. John Cleese has said that it took Peter Cook about 20 minutes to write what would take him and Graham Chapman over 6 or 7 hours to accomplish. For Brits, he was the comedian's comedian. Saying who he influenced among British comedians is sort of like saying what rock musicians were influenced by Elvis. Peter Cook is this extremely well-respected British comedian, so of course Dudley Moore is the one who becomes famous in the States. Dudley Moore, he isn't as well known as a writer, but he was definitely a more diverse performer. He was in no way a lesser partner to Cook, but he was less known for sort of his influence on comedy at the time. It's odd because when you see Cook and Moore together, Moore is usually the more grounded character. Now, if you look at the buffoons he played in the films later, he was a lot bigger and a lot more showy there. He was born with clubbed feet. The left of one never really responded, and he was always very self-conscious about that and his height, which, oddly enough, in the world of comedy, wound up being sort of his bread and butter, especially his height and his just unique persona in general. At the time of their appearance, they were sort of at the end of their run as a pair. They had some different personal ambitions, and they had personal demons. And they had maybe another 3 or 4 years of working together before they finally packed it in as a team.
Dudley Moore gives me low-key Phil Collins vibes.
And our musical guest tonight is Neil Sedaka, and I'll talk about Neil when he comes up here. So, are you ready to rock on this episode?
Ready.
Begins with a cold opening, a rare live appearance by George Coe, who's with Jane Curtin. They found a bomb in their basement. Cop, played by Garrett Morris, calls in the bomb squad. It's Chase. Chase goes to disarm the bomb, puts the bomb box on a crate. Then he gets the worst pie in the face in television history and gives Live from New York. This was just silly. It didn't, it wasn't a strongly written cold opening to me.
It was very silly, and for that reason I liked it. I was very disappointed by the pie, though.
Pie was a bummer, but I agree. Like Chevy, he was the star of the episode for me last episode, and this continues to demonstrate why. Just such a comedic physical presence.
And we go to our intro, and for the first time, Don Pardo actually says the not ready for primetime players' names.
I love that. They are consistently the best part of the show. They are why the show becomes this legendary classic. And if you read the history, they're the ones that are busting their ass. These people, they're using cocaine at like Tuesday at 2 a.m. just to get through those extra couple of hours to finish and get the show on the air. They deserve it. That's all I'm trying to say.
So then we head to the monologue. Peter Cook and Dudley Moore talk about the differences between UK and US comedy, the subtlety, the sophistication, and then they ironically demonstrate it with their sketch, One Leg Too Few. Without getting into the sketch, how did the monologue work for you?
I thought it was good. I'm not super familiar with these guys, so to see them come out, I thought it was a good exhibition of their personalities, and I thought it was a nice amuse-bouche for what's to come.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that. Got a few little chuckles out of me for sure.
Yeah, I liked how they said they've been performing in America for 3 years and have yet to get a laugh. Because British
That
comedy
gave me a laugh.
Yeah, so highbrow. So then we go to One Leg Too Few. Peter Cook wrote this sketch when he was 17. So this sketch had been done a lot over the years, but and originally it was Peter Cook with someone else, but it did become one of their signature sketches. Basically, a one-legged man is auditioning for the role of Tarzan. I mean, this is brilliant. This is silly. It's great wordplay. It's tremendously performed. I thought this was great.
The words jungle stardom absolutely sent me over the edge.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. Again, this is, you know what, to be honest, I'm going to go on to enjoy this episode a fair bit. And this is possibly my one of the lower points of the evening for me, to be honest. I like it okay, but spoiler alert, I really like this episode. And this is probably what I like the least about it.
Best line of that for me is, I have nothing against your left leg. Then again, neither do you, or whatever it is. So then we go to Lifer Follies. Peter Cook plays a director planning to stage Gigi with a bunch of death row inmates. George Coe plays the warden, and Gilda is Cook's secretary, and they're holding auditions at the prison. Paul Schaefer is there in full prison garb, playing the piano. Dan Aykroyd plays somebody who went to a family reunion with a flamethrower and basically killed his whole family, which Peter Cook gives the line, "I don't imagine you get much mail." Aykroyd's skit is that he dances with insects, but in reality he's, perversely stepping on the index as he dances. He gets a very sick joy out of killing them, and then he's dragged out by the prison guards.
Dan always feels like he's really there in his character, and I really admire that.
Yeah, this is great. This is a sketch that's really working with the performances. Dan Aykroyd really showing off here acting-wise. I thought he was great. I think everybody in this sketch is great. The acting is really going to carry this for me. Our
next inmate to come into audition is Chevy Chase as Clyde Sankey, and he tells a joke with his name, "Thank you, you're welcome." His character's a pervert, and he attacks Gilda Radner a couple times. This was definitely the most uncomfortable moment of the episode for me.
He's really funny, and he doesn't have to rely on such lowbrow humor, which he is doing.
While I agree with the comments about the content, I continue to think he is a fantastic actor, and I continue to think that everybody in this sketch is really bringing it with the acting. You get lost in this sketch, and you don't do that without convincing players.
I agree with that.
Next up, we have Garrett Morris come in as Garrett Johnson, and he sings, "Gonna get me a shotgun and kill all the whiteys I see." Hilarious.
This had me deceased. This was peak humor to me, and I love seeing Garrett shine.
This is highlight reel SNL for me. Like, it's a highlight for Garrett Morris. Absolutely. I don't know who wrote it. I thought it was a winner.
My laugh was ugly and intense.
I had forgotten about this. This is Garrett Morris at his absolute best, and it's actually Garrett Morris's favorite Saturday Night Live moment. Now, who wrote it? There's a book that came out in 1975. It's in my mother's basement somewhere, and I can't wait for this lockdown to end so I can go down and go home and get it. In the book, it says Lorne Michaels wrote the song. However, Garrett Morris claims that the song was written by a racist woman who, instead of whiteys, said the N-word, and he saw it on a television in the 50s. And so he changed the tune a little bit and co-opted it and made it his own and knocked him dead.
That's funny, because that's exactly the vibe that I got from it, that he must have found this from somewhere and it was flipped the other way. And it's funny how I felt intuitive with that.
And finally, Belushi comes in. I found this bit on some trivia there. He uses the names, there's a whole bunch of names they give him, but he introduces himself as Steve Buscakis, which is the name of a high school friend. And remember that name, because we're going to see it a lot. He just uses it as a random name throughout his run. He sings the song "That's Life," which was recorded by Sinatra, but other people did it. Couple of jumps here and there, and then he attacks Peter Cook, and he's dragged out, but Peter Cook is impressed enough to cast him.
My crush only intensified during this little moment that he had.
This is my least favorite of the performances. I'm on record. I'm not the biggest Belushi guy. I'm not a Belushi guy, but I can certainly respect when he's bringing it, when he's doing his best. I don't know. This was just the least funny of them.
Great skit overall. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Garrett won the day for me, though, there. So now we go to Neil Sedaka. And just to give some background, Neil Sedaka was trained at Juilliard. He was a huge pop star in the early 60s in the bubblegum era, with songs like Calendar Girls, Happy Birthday, Sweet 16, and Breaking Up Is Hard to Do. And throughout the period, he was appearing on other albums as sort of a session musician and writing tons of music. Like a lot of people who were doing that sort of bubblegum stuff, his career was pretty much squashed by the arrival of the Beatles and the change of music. He kept writing, though, and performing. He moved to Australia for a little while. He wrote songs for ABBA, and his song Love Will Keep Us Together was a huge hit for Captain and Tennille. He then somehow fell in with Elton John and signed with his Rocket Records, and that was in the early 70s. His latest release at this point was an album called The Hungry Years, which featured the Breaking Up Is Hard to Do remix, I guess we'd call it nowadays, but the new piano version of it that we hear during his first performance.
I could reproduce Neil Sedaka's outfit in 90 seconds here. Dee, is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
This man is my fashion icon. What a handsome, smartly dressed man. This is how I would dress if you were to say, Matthew, you're going to be on TV. Get dressed. Literally, it's in my closet right now.
It literally is.
Somewhere between homeless Elliot Gould and dapper Neil Sedaka is Matt. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. To the point where I literally have like this color combination and this chain available. I used to wear this when I was hosting the comedy nights. Like, this is really my jam, fashion-wise. I think this man looks brilliant. I love how much he loves being there. Neil Sedaka is having the time of his life. This is it's an okay song for me. It's decent. What a showman. I couldn't take my eyes off it. One of my favorite musical performances so far.
The audience popped off for this. I don't know how people were reacting to him at that time, but the audience definitely lost it over him. The whole time he kept staring into the camera, which I'm not going to lie, I felt a little bit threatened, like it triggered my fight or flight. Yeah, I loved this. This was good.
But yeah, Neil Sedaka looking, I mean, he's having such a good time. He wants you to have a good time too. He's sending you the good time.
I had it. I caught it.
Yeah, we got it. We loved it.
I'm not disappointed. I'm just completely shocked.
What did you expect?
I didn't think he'd like it. Yeah.
Oh, big hit over here, man.
I love lounge lizard vibe songs.
Oh, yeah.
Performances.
So our next bit is Don Pardo's Holiday in an Elevator. It's around the world in 80 floors. Dan Aykroyd and Gilda Radner play some tourists who can actually travel the world by going up and down an elevator and seeing Dudley Moore in different costumes in front of a green screen. Keeps getting interrupted by different animals. And there's a fun bit with Chevy Chase being a kind of a twit at the end. Aykroyd and Radner are nice and silly. I didn't particularly like this sketch, though, too much. It was kind of silly. But I think they were honestly having fun with green screen.
Chevy Chase asking if they have anything to declare, and then that big smile. That's oh my gosh, the laugh that got out of me. It was the best part of the sketch.
Yeah.
The rest of it was fine. It was a cute joke. Dudley Moore just, showing off, and the other two just have to react. They're fine at what they do. It's just green screen jokes. But yeah, Chevy was the unique highlight in this.
Yeah, I agree with that. I know in 2021 when we're recording this, we're kind of over the green screen. But I feel like if you had never really outside of big films saw a green screen before, this is really funny. It really shows their imagination that they're able to take advantage of that because it's literally not visibly there for them. And I feel like we discount that a little bit. And they're so early in on that. And they did a great job.
So our next bit is just a little chyron. This person knows Norm Crosby, who was a comedian at the time. And then we go to Weekend Update. Back to I'm Chevy Chase and You're Not. Francisco Franco is still critically dead. He calls Angola again. He calls Jane Curtin, who lives with somebody named Angela, who's not at home. Lorraine Newman is her reporter, interviews Garrett Morris and gets his views on abortion, and Garrett Morris says he hasn't had one and probably never would. Then we go to our first commercial.
Working pretty good for me so far. I really enjoyed the line, "Who yanks the beads out?" What the hell?
That was on the phone, yeah.
Yeah.
But then they say later somebody was stringing beads. I think it was Angela.
Yeah. I think we all know, and I think they knew. But yeah, Chevy is so good at this, and at this point, like he's on a hitting streak. He's the baseball player that's going up and just hitting effortless, casual doubles into left center field and just trotting off to second. He's in the zone, and this is why he's the star, and this is why he's in the position he's in.
And then we go to our commercial. It's the Middle America Van Lines. We've seen this one before. Dee loved it, Matt liked it, and I wasn't so hot. I'm still not hot on it. Dee and Matt, still the same?
I love it even more now.
I stayed about the same. I was like, yeah, it's cute.
No, that's a lie. Matt laughed so hard
Did I laugh
over when all the people are just standing in the moving van. I was like, they do be standing there, and he absolutely lost.
But I was laughing at you almost more than the program.
Well, that was your favorite shot the first time around too, Matt. So.
Yeah, I mean, I do really like that ending.
And then we bring out Emily Latella, where she mixes up Soviet jewelry with Soviet jewelry. More of the same, and I didn't know exactly. I know what jewelry meant, but I didn't understand that was the word she was mixing it up with. This one fell flat for me.
Yeah, this is not a recurring character that works for me. This is it's so one note. You know, this whole sketch, these entire several minutes, like Gilda's fine, but she's not doing anything that she hasn't done before. She's not telling a joke that she hasn't already told us. And you can't just keep running her out here. Well, I guess you know what I say. You can't just keep running her out here. They can, and they fucking will. But I mean, they're going to keep running her out here for the sake of this pun joke. And I don't think it works. And I think it's really lazy. And I think it is just feeding into almost like the pop culture popularity of a character. I think this is one of the first times, and I think it's a good almost beta example of what you will see later when something might be popular with a crowd, but it's not necessarily a comedic success. You'll see these things later where something keeps coming back and you're like, oh, for fuck's sake, they're doing this again. And I feel like this about this already. They're doing this again because it's probably popular with whatever demo that they're trying to target or whatever. But I don't think there's any comedic substance behind it because, well, there just isn't. There's no joke. It's just Gilda being cute for a pun. Not great. I don't like it.
I agree. Like, if you're going to deliver me a joke about a misunderstanding being funny, you have to give me more than this. You can't just do the same thing over and over again. You're going to have to build on it beyond this editorial reply where I know the joke every single time, which is interesting because with a joke like Garrett Morris at the end of Weekend Update, that's something I find funny and look forward to. So it's kind of interesting to see them succeed and then fail at that kind of balance.
Yeah. And then we have it's Chevy says they're not allowed to mention Gerald Ford by name anymore in clumsy, depicting him in a clumsy manner. So he he tells the story of an unidentified man who fell out of the second story window of the White House.
I gotta laugh out of that. The Ford clumsy jokes at this point, I just because I'm watching the show, I just get them. And Chevy just does them so well that, they work okay on me.
And then they combine their final stories of the night, saying that George Foreman knocked out Beirut, Lebanon. I got a good kick out of that one. And we don't get Garrett again, but we do get Alan Zweibel again as the president for the Society of Wet Americans, and he delivers the story from the shower. Are any of these non-Garrett ones working for you guys?
No, they're not. It didn't work the last time, and it doesn't work this time. I don't know. I guess they're reaching. I don't know what they're reaching for. They want it to be different. They want it to be better. But yeah, no. Yeah, short answer, Keith. No.
Okay, and then we jump to Peter Cook and Dudley Moore with frequently done sketch Frog and Peach. Peter Cook plays Arthur Strebe Griebling. This is a character he brought out a few times. Basically an aristocrat who's completely out of touch with reality. He opened a restaurant where people could get big frogs and a damn fine peach. This was funny. It's Cook and Moore's greatest hits, you know what I mean? I enjoyed it, though, especially the kicking of when Cook crosses his legs and kicks the clipboard out of Dudley Moore's hands.
You say that this was an often done sketch. I'd never seen this sketch before, never heard of this before, but my goodness, I loved it. This is the, Keith, I watched this today. It's the hardest I've laughed so far at Saturday Night Live.
Oh,
I
nice.
was in stitches. It was the hardest I've laughed to date at this show. It really just set a new high bar for me.
I agree.
Nice.
I don't think I've laughed this much before this sketch. They're so good together. I have so many things to say about this, so I'm just not going to go too deep into this. But yeah, funniest thing I've seen on this show so far. It's the type of humor that really gets me.
Cook's, like, his physical humor when he's like switching his legs. I mean, back and forth. He kicked the clipboard initially, and it's very John Cleese. I got John Cleese vibes from it with the physical humor. My gosh, like when he was describing the dishes, I was dying.
Yeah.
The 3,000 black tadpoles and the peach a la frog.
A frog out of a peach and peach a la frog.
I can see why this, because I'd never heard of it, Keith. I can see why it's a classic. This was the funniest thing that I have seen so far on Saturday Night Live.
We next go to a Gary Weiss film, which is announced by Jane Curtin. And they go to Paramount Calendar and Novelties, where a lady who runs the store obviously loves her job. It goes through and shows different jokes and gags you can got there, and she explains it in a very, I don't want to say deadpan, but this lady could be talking about clothing or food. Again, this was another fantastic short film by Gary Weiss.
I think this is a huge success. This brought me back to my childhood, going to places like the It Store and San Francisco, and these little weird novelty store, Big Boppers, another store when I was a kid. There was so much magic and mystery, and the shopkeep wasn't just some retail for hire nobody. It was somebody that's like, yeah, so this one's gonna blow your mind, man. Wait till I show you this one.
Yep.
And so it not only did it bring me back to my childhood, but what a charming, wonderful woman. What a cool shop. I thought this was brilliant. I thought she was perfect. This spoke to me personally. Home run.
This was amazing for me. San Francisco, Matt just said that's probably my first experience of getting that kind of feeling, like that there was so much mystery that could be bought, and I found that so fascinating. And all the practical jokes, the whoopee cushion, I don't know, I aspire to be this woman when I'm older. Like, this is exactly who I want to be and what I want to do. Like, if you're wondering who I picture myself as in 30 years, it's her. This was just amazing. I really felt like she was being herself. It wasn't even like deadpan humor to me. I just felt like this was just her vibe. Like, this is the funniest shit. She knows her shop is amazing, and I loved it.
Well, this store is still open. Paramount Calendar and Novelties.
No way. Oh my
still
God.
open. It's been in operation since 1930. I couldn't, unfortunately, I sort of researched this bit towards the end, and I couldn't nail down who this woman is. But I assume, with no frame of reference at all, that this woman's, father or grandfather or uncle opened it, and it was a family deal, and she grew up in there. And, I really got a nice feeling about this sketch and this woman and this store. And yeah, it brought me back to the I don't know if you remember Fritzy's, Matt, but that's earlier than Big Boppers, but all the same sort of stuff. You go into a store where it was whoopee cushions and plastic vomit and stuff like that.
Of course I do. It's like in that it's in that like part of my childhood brain that it's like an unlockable, you know what I mean? I remember it as you say it.
Okay, our next sketch is Peter Cook and Dudley Moore as the Scottish Sonny and Cher. They sing I've Got You, McBabe, another parody of the Sonny and Cher song, which is parodied all over the place. It's hard for me to find that really funny. Lily Tomlin as Scred did it only a couple weeks ago. A whole bunch of shots at Cher again. I didn't like this. This is two comic geniuses completely out of their element, obviously doing other people's material. I will give them points for how much they actually did look like Sonny and Cher, though. From a distance, you wouldn't have been able to tell the difference.
This is drag culture. Like, this is gay culture. And I think Peter Cook, I really felt like he was really into this. Like, it wasn't cross-dressing joke being in her position. It really felt like drag show kind of vibes, gay culture vibes, kind of just little off-the-cuff jokes, making fun of a man dressing as a woman. That wasn't the center of the joke at all, and I appreciated that.
I appreciate that too, and I totally get what you mean. Like, yeah, it's very, like, it's pretty much exactly what I would see pre-pandemic down at the M&M bar down on Gottingen Street here in Halley. But be that as it may, to Keith's point, as soon as I heard a joke about Cher leaving Sonny Bono for Allman, I was like, yeah, these guys have nothing to do with this. They are trotted out here in costumes to read cue cards. Really took me out of it.
Yeah, there was a chyron that said one consenting adult means nothing.
Oh my god, I didn't even see that one. I must have missed it while I was writing down my notes. That's true, though.
Yeah, it is. It's taken a long time for that message to get around.
Literally, like, we're sleeping on that message. It's just some obvious shit.
So next up is what I wrote down as Dee's Worlds Colliding. Scred comes out dressed as a bee. And if anybody's looking for the perfect Christmas gift for Dee, it's to find a little stuffed animal of Scred dressed as a bee.
Oh my god, anybody, if you're able to make this, like, I will commission you. Okay, bee Scred, oh my god, and Gilda
Scred
together.
And a bee. Scred in the costume. You could draw. Why don't you try to draw it first?
I couldn't even take it. Like, he came out, he said, we're tired of being second class. I was like, the bees and the Muppets both, honey. And then the good evening, I'm Scred and you're not.
Oh, that was so good.
I cried. This is what I want to see from the Muppets on Saturday Night Live. Where is their interaction with the rest of the cast? It felt like such a self-aware moment. I don't know if it came from Jim Henson, but I felt like it was Jim Henson saying, like, why are you making this a separate part of the show? Like, why is this not integrated like everything else is? And I agree. I want this integrated.
Huge breath of fresh air. Like, this is what exactly what Dee just said. This is what I wanted of the Muppets. I want Sesame Street at an adult level, which is what this was. I don't want a space fantasy, extramarital affairs, this stupid talking statue. This is a $1 million idea that nobody could figure out. Or, like, are you fucking kidding me? It's not that nobody could figure it out. It's just, you know, from what I hear, like, the writers were just fucking couldn't give a shit. Jim Henson's just not a cunning enough comedic writer to figure it out. And, I mean, what are actors going to do? They're just going to be there. Anyway, money left on the table. With this whole concept, this is what it was all about, though.
Scred literally got to intro the music this time. I popped off for that. Yeah. I know I'm not the only one.
You're not, because I too.
So we've seen them do this 3 times now. It worked great with Lily. It worked great with Gilda. It worked okay with Candace. This is obvious now, guys. This is what you use them for.
Right? It should be. It fucking should be, unless you're a dolt. Like, get it together. Stop doing these. I shouldn't see another sketch. When you've seen the results of what you've done, you have history to prove it. We shouldn't go back to the planet. I shouldn't see the statue again. There should be no more of that.
I mean, I'm saying dump everything except Scred and maybe
Me
Plubis.
too.
I mean, and Gilda's all in. Scred gets a little rapey there for a second, but she seems to get a kick out of it. He wants to play with her.
She's go ahead, Dee.
I don't think it's rapey because they have already established that kind of relationship before. I'm just saying, they have established the flirtation. They have a little kiss, and Gilda goes in and kisses him at the end. There's some polyamory going on here. I'm just saying.
Oh, there certainly was. Yeah.
It's a fantastic point. In addition to the fact that nobody else can do this, Lorraine Newman, Jane Curtin, nobody pulls this off like Gilda Radner with scred.
And I did get a bit more. The reason Henson wasn't writing this was the writers union had a stink about it. So that's why SNL writers had to write the Muppet stuff. That's the issue there. But again, I think Henson had I'd say Henson definitely had a big hand into what was going on. And they throw to Neil Sedaka, who sings Lonely Night. This was another song that Captain and Tennille later made more money with. But for what it's worth, I definitely prefer Sedaka's version. It's just a weird fit for me, but I mean, I like Neil Sedaka. Was this one as good for you guys as the first one?
So much better. This one was more lively. It was bouncier. Sedaka still into it. Not even breaking a sweat. Inhuman under the hot studio lights. The song is more upbeat. I'm surprised they didn't swap the order, but whatever. Because you know what? At this point in SNL, I like the energy boost. I like the adrenaline jolt. And Neil gave it to me. He's still looking into the camera. He's making eye contact. He's singing to you. He looks great still. He didn't change his outfit. This isn't a new outfit. You know what? If I'm Neil Sedaka, if I'm this successful fashion icon, maybe I Diana Ross it. Maybe I change my outfit. I might have changed my outfit if I were him. But it's hard to improve on the perfection that the outfit is initially. Anyway, I digress. I could go on. I won't.
If I really feel that somebody loves what they're doing, I'm probably going to love it too. So I did love it too. I'm going to consider him a lounge daddy. Hashtag lounge daddy. That's who he is now to me. My only issue is that I felt a little bit threatened when we got to the lyric, "Hey, little girl, depend on me." But allegedly, he didn't write these lyrics, so I will try not to fault him for it.
No, he wrote them.
Oh, my lord, he wrote those? Oh, man, okay.
He also wrote Happy Birthday, Sweet 16, which he sang well into his 70s. So.
I'm literally calling 911 right now.
different time, though. Different time. Yeah, no, this was good. Matt, I think this is the first time since Billy Preston, and we're eliminating Art Garfunkel from all equations musically right now. It's the first time since Billy Preston that you've liked both performances.
I enjoyed this last performance by Neil Sedaka more than I enjoyed Art Garfunkel's performance. This is my new favorite musical performance on Saturday Night Live to date. I really thought this was the tops.
We will hear a really brief clip of Frank Zappa during this episode that made Matt pop off more than anything else during this entire season. So, I mean, I don't know what he's talking about.
They play Frank Zappa music. They like the bumpers, you know, when they go to commercial. Yeah. The music they play, they go into a Frank Zappa song. That's all that is.
So we next go to Backstage Banter. It's Jane Curtin again hosting a TV show with John Belushi, who is a female impersonating a man. She shows a picture of herself out of costume, and it's like a woman with her family. But in costume, it's John Belushi. Belushi does a good Rod Steiger impersonation. This one wasn't funny to me at all. But I will say this is the only time in my memory of watching a sketch with John Belushi and realizing how much he can look like Jim Belushi.
He looks just like Jim Belushi in this sketch. It tripped me out in this one. But I didn't think it was funny. It felt like they were kind of just like shitting on transgender people. I don't know what was going on here. And if you didn't notice, the colors in the background were the color of the trans flag, which wouldn't really come out until 1999. So I thought that was a really strange coincidence that was popping up here.
Interesting, yeah.
I do agree, quite a coincidence. Yeah. But yeah, this isn't funny. Yeah. Belushi's always in the sketches that don't date well.
I'm noticing that, yeah. Trying to put myself in the minds of the writers at that point in time. Belushi of the male cast would be the ugliest woman, perhaps. I don't quite know.
Yeah, and it's fair. Yeah, it's totally fair, Keith, as well, because we don't know who's writing these. And, Belushi doesn't run the show. He goes out in there and he does he's an employee. He goes out there and he does what he's told.
Although I do suspect Belushi wrote this one.
Oh, Jesus.
I have nothing to back that up, but it just seems like his...
Are they trying to put him in this position always, so he's kind of always the scapegoat for these dirty, sleazy little jokes, so that they have like a scapegoat guy? Because that's the vibe I'm starting to get at this point.
I'm more the opposite, where I think Belushi is more prone to go for a cheaper laugh than the others. That's where I'm feeling. I'm going to remove Garrett from the equation because Garrett isn't writing much of his own stuff. But when you look at Chevy, Belushi, and Aykroyd, Belushi's stuff is definitely the least intelligent of the three. Am I off base on that? Or
I mean, no, I don't think so at all. It's always pretty crude, pretty base humor.
Yeah. This sketch, if let's say we put it in 91, you wouldn't have seen Carvey do this sketch. You wouldn't have seen Phil Hartman do this sketch. This sketch would have been Mike Myers or Chris Farley. People sort of find their niches, right? So our next bit is an ad. This actually appeared long ago in an episode from like episode 2 or 3, this ad, but we didn't get it on the DVDs. It's called Attractive. And it's Chevy Chase and Jacqueline Carlin, a very attractive couple walking around New York. And the announcer comes on and says, neither of these people use commercial products to look more attractive.
I laughed.
Yeah. I thought it was okay. I mean, it's a quick hit. It's fine. Chevy's handsome. There's no doubt about it.
And Carlin's nothing to sneeze at either. She's quite a looker. Well done, Chevy. Our next bit is organ harvesting. Dudley Moore and Dan Aykroyd are playing doctors, and they're about to take the organs from a cadaver, or what they believe to be a cadaver, played by Garrett Morris. Moore and Aykroyd ask the staff to raise their hands if they think the patient is dead. They all raise their hands, and then Aykroyd Moore asks for any objections, and Garrett Morris raises his hand, and they don't notice, and they proceed. This one felt Python-esque, actually. Nothing to write home about, but it didn't bother me too much.
It was silly when Garrett raised his hand. I laughed.
Yeah, that was the pop of the sketch for me, too.
And then we go to the Gospel Truth, another Beyond the Fringe hit. Dudley Moore playing Matthew, as in the Gospel writer Matthew, and he interviews a shepherd named Arthur Shepherd, who was there for Jesus' birth. This is just another excellent sketch. It's really interesting to see how low-key the reaction was from the U.S. audiences. But well done by Cook and Moore.
The U.S. audience slept on this. I could not stop laughing. Every line that was delivered made me die again. We're swaddling, atrocious.
Yeah.
And then, like, later when Jesus, he was so polite, he adjusted his swaddle.
Is this in addition to the Peach and Frog? Are these like classic sketches or classic bits of theirs that they're bringing to SNL for the larger American audience?
Yeah, One Leg Too Few, Frog and Peach, and Gospel Truth are greatest hits. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I guess because I don't know them, so I guess I would be one of those people that is appreciative of the fact that they got to do their classic material on this live broadcast. So I actually think it's really cool that SNL let them do this, that they recognize like, this is your hit, you go do this, and that they didn't say, hey, instead of doing, because I mean, especially this last one, this wasn't short. And the other one wasn't very short either. So they really gave them a lot of time. So somebody there definitely recognized this is fucking some good shit. For sure. So just let them go do it. I never saw this stuff. I would never have seen this stuff if it wasn't on Saturday Night Live. And I'm sure that is the case for thousands of other people, to say the least. So thanks to the show. Thanks to them. Loved the jokes. Loved the performances. I could go on, but we don't got all night. Loved it. Great sketch. Loved how it ended the show. So awesome that they got to do their own shit.
And then we go to the goodbyes, and they reenact the pie in the face from the beginning so it could be done properly. I like that they did that.
I like that they did it too. It felt. Do you think this was planned? Or do you think was this an impromptu end? Keith, sometimes I'm going to ask you questions sometimes that pretend like you were there, or like that I just assume that you know everything. But I hope you understand that that's just because that's your particular position on the show is the brain of the history.
Oh, I 110,000 million think that this was maybe not spur of the moment per se, but when the first one effed up, I'd say somebody probably cursed backstage, and then someone said, we'll just go out and do it at the end. So let's go into our epilogue. Dudley Moore will return as host in 1986, but this is the last we're going to see of Peter Cook. The partnership between the two breaks up a few years later, pretty much for good, with a few guest spots every now and then. Essentially, Moore goes to Hollywood and becomes a big star. Cook goes back to the UK, although he did come back and forth between the US and the UK. Peter Cook had serious issues with the bottle. it's couched that he probably had some sort of depression. People describe him as just being eternally bored with the world. They say he was a good guy when he was sober, and not always so when he was on the bottle. He did make a bit of a comeback in the late 80s, but then sadly passed away in 1995 at the young age of 57. You sad we're not going to see Peter Cook again?
I am sad about it, actually.
Terribly sad. Terribly sad. What a comedic presence I thought on this show. Troubling news, TBH.
Yeah.
I'm worried we're not going to see anybody that really makes me feel the way he did on Saturday Night Live, but I hope.
What a confident, vibing guy. Dee, even you said on the way out, when at the end of the show, when he had the hat on and he's smoking, he's just, he was living his best life. How did he die, Keith?
I think it was technically heart, but there was chronic alcoholism there for a very long time.
Okay.
And I think he had beaten that. Like I said, he made a bit of a comeback of sorts. He used to appear a lot on the talk shows in England, sometimes telling stories and sometimes playing characters. And then I believe his mother passed away in 95, and he sort of spiraled down after that, unfortunately. Absolutely legendary. Like, we cannot fathom it on this side of the Atlantic, how big Peter Cook was and still is. And our musical guests. So there's conflicting reports on Neil Sedaka, too. If he appears or not in a 1982 episode that I tried to get, but I couldn't get quite yet. But his music definitely shows up again. Neil Sedaka is one of the few survivors of his era, and he's definitely one of the United States' most prolific singer-songwriters of the last century. He is still performing today at 83, and he's been married to the same woman for 59 years. And Neil Sedaka is pretty much universally regarded as one of stardom celebrities' truly good guys. And just to give an example of that, in April 2020, just last year, he launched a series of free mini concerts on his social media channels as a way of entertaining people who were stuck at home during COVID. Every day the concert featured 3 of Sedaka's favorite songs from his discography, and then when he caught COVID, he had to stop for a brief minute, but as soon as the doctor said he could go again, he jumped right back in, a slightly more reduced schedule, and on January 4th of this year, after recovering with no symptoms, he started releasing his daily concerts again. So good on Neil Sedaka.
Agree. What a talent. An historic talent, a once-in-a-lifetime talent, really. I never thought, Neil Sedaka, you know what, it's not really my kind of music. But you know what, I do love the lounge lizard vibe that Dee described him as earlier. That's really aesthetically pleasing for me. And he really pulls it off. And listen, that's not what he's trying to pull off. That's not what he's pulling off from my aunt who bought all those Neil Sedaka albums. And so I'm sure as far as Neil Sedaka is concerned, as long as you're buying his albums, doesn't matter if you think he's a lounge lizard. Just enjoy the show, man.
I kind of get the vibe from Neil Sedaka that, like, he loves doing what he does so much he'd do it for nothing. And doing it for nothing, you know. So yeah, let's go into our thoughts and our rewards. So let's first talk about the music. I'll go first with Sedaka. He performs a retread of one of his old classics, and it's pretty good. And then he does an upbeat one that is definitely like 70s Neil Sedaka. He's an extremely talented guy. This didn't work for me in the context of SNL. He was a teen idol, like many other teen idols could have absolutely disappeared when the Beatles came in, but he kept at it. Good on him, because he's almost 40 at this point, and most of his contemporaries were, working at the gas stations or something by then.
He's only almost 40 at this performance.
Yeah.
He looks ghoulishly in his late 50s, like he has makeup plastered on to retain his youthful appearance. And that's a horrible look for the actual biological age that he is. Love the performance. Great performance for me. You know how much I love that second song. I'm already on record. But what a shocking reveal of his age, despite his appearance.
Well, to be fair, at 83, he looks exactly the same with white hair.
You're right. So. You know what? You're right. Yeah. He's timeless like that.
I liked it. I didn't like the weird undertones he had about underage girls. Like, that didn't really fly for me. But what do you expect from a lounge lizard?
And our hosts. I thought Cook and Moore did an excellent job with their own material, but like stuff like Ed Grimley or like Mark McKinney's Derill or when the Pythons later come on and do Python stuff, it's not as effective in someone else's on someone else's stage. To their credit, the intro in the monologue explained it. Any musician can come on any show and do their greatest hits and it'd be a huge smash. But with comedians, it doesn't seem to work that well. This stuff is great stuff. They did a good job, and they were great at that stuff. Medium to shitty doing other people's stuff. This
is a 10 out of 10 for me. They are my favorite hosts. They integrated the best into the cast for me. I loved it. Peak humor the whole way through from them.
I agree and disagree with Dee. I don't think I've seen somebody blend in with the cast as well as Elliot Gould has. I felt Elliot Gould was a not ready for primetime player during his performance. So I disagree with that part, Dee. But I thought first of all, I hate that I have to lump them together. Dudley Moore didn't do as much. He just didn't. He didn't do as much for me. He was a bit more of a straight man, and I get it. Everybody needs a straight man. A straight man is very important. And you know what? Who am I to say that maybe this is the straight man that he needs specifically? And you know what? Sometimes they even both play the straight man. I should not question the comedic chemistry that these two obvious professionals have together. I thought they were brilliant. They were on the level of Richard Pryor for my favorite hosts of Saturday Night Live so far. Their sketch about the Peach and Frog, or the Frog and Peach, was the most I have laughed at this show so far, and that's why I'm here.
All right, and let's see, your worst sketch of the night or worst thing of the night.
My worst thing of the night is going to go to the Belushi sketch. He is a woman disguised as a man. And this was terribly misguided. And Belushi didn't do it particularly well. He was just shitting through it. Everybody just shat through this relatively offensive sketch.
Yep, I agree. The Belushi sketch was not good. I did not like that. I don't want to see that energy again. Don't give it to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right on the same page with you guys. The best sketch or bit of the night?
The Frog and Peach. It was the funniest thing I've seen on this whole friggin' show so far.
Me too. Peak humor up the top.
For me, I kind of had to look at this as two shows in one, and taking the Cook and Moore thing and sort of casting it aside, looking at the Saturday Night Live created stuff. For me, it was the Gary Weiss joke shop movie.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing to bring up, Keith, is that these guys got to come in here and do something that was a bit greatest hits for them. You know, I know that, and knowing that and picking it as my favorite, I'm like, I don't love that. It did make me laugh the most. I have to pick it. But it's with an asterisk, I guess, if I may, because you're right. Because I also agree that, and, you know, not unlike what I felt about his other film, I really think these short films are something so unique and wonderful on television that I'm fucking really impressed on an artistic level that is outside of this show entirely. I love these.
I agree. I hope they were paid the way that Albert Brooks was paid for this, because it exceeds the talent that was given to us there.
They definitely did not get Albert Brooks money for this. It's a shame.
No.
That's gicky.
And we've now seen 4 Gary Weiss films. Now, the first one was a complete flop with us. But the next 3 have been fantastic, you know, just really enjoyable.
He's very talented. It's obvious. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah. And your star of the night?
Neil Sedaka.
I choose Scred.
Awesome. I did not see that. I stick with the not ready for primetime players, and for the first time, I'm going with Garrett Morris. Life or Follies thing had me in stitches, and I absolutely loved his, nope, never had an abortion. Nope, probably won't. In my humble opinion, the actual Saturday Night Live content was pretty friggin' weak here. The highlights were the Cook and Moore pre-existing stuff and the Gary Weiss film. Again, this seems like a time where people are getting tired and it's time for a break or some new blood or something. Sedaka was excellent, and if I was a bigger Sedaka fan, I probably would have loved this. So for me, the SNL produced stuff, the not ready for primetime player stuff, would get a 3 from me. The other stuff would get a 7. So I'm settling on a reluctant 5.
I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10 this time. I found myself laughing a lot more than I do usually. The energy was there from beginning to end. So yeah, 7.5. I could almost give it an 8. But there was a little bit of racism in there, a little bit of trans hate in there. So that took it down.
I'm certainly leaning more personally toward the D side of things as far as a generous rating is concerned. I really enjoyed the greatest hits tour of our 2 English hosts. I thought Neil Sedaka was a fantastic musical guest, continues to be a style icon well into the 21st century. I would give this episode, thanks to a strong weekend update as well, and another strong performance by Chevy Chase on this episode, 7.5 out of 10 for me on this episode.
That ties your record, Matt.
I'm not surprised.
D, it's your second highest rating.
I'm not surprised. I thought it might be my highest.
It's a little under Elliot Gould.
Okay, that's fair.
Our scores, I gave it a 5. Matt, you were 7.5. D was a 7.5. That averages out to 6.7. And the IMDb folks gave it a 7.3.
Oh, awfully close then.
Yeah, that's very close. This was a fun episode to record.
I had a lot of fun. This was one of my favorite episodes of the season so far, if not my favorite, but I mean, that's too close to call. But I tell you what, I think the show's on a roll, and I'm really looking forward to the next one. They've got me at that point where I definitely want to see more. I just want to see more of these. I'm getting hooked.
So our next episode is episode 12, and it's our episode 12 as well. And this one will feature Dick Cavett and Jimmy Cliff. So until then, if you happen to find yourself in Don Pardo's Holiday in an Elevator, and you press the button under basement, you won't find Dudley Moore in a ram. You'll find me and Matt and Dee here in SN Hell.